What's good, Chris? Man.
What is good? What is good? Good morning. What's going on over there?
Oh, man. Tariffs. It seems like that we get to be macro armchair experts today, as we will into the near future. Although, kind of crazy that the stock market gained the entire crypto market cap in 1 hour. Kind of puts it in perspective how small we are infinitely compared to the boomer market.
Just a casual trillion, not a big deal. I mean,
it was 2.5 trillion in the first hour.
Jeez, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about the industry. It's just so small. You know, it's been so small forever. That's like always a bull case that we have on our side. We're like less than the size of one major U.S. corporation. You know, Apple's bigger than us. It's crazy.
It is. What's good, Adam?
Adam,
what was the big pop of the morning? What jumped the most?
Everything.
I think
everything, literally just all green candles, huh? Nice, dude.
I think Farcoin's like one of the top performers always off the bottom.
In crypto, yeah. It's you know, I've kind of noticed is whenever there's a big downturn, there's generally one coin each time that ends up like commanding the majority of the volume. It was like Farcoin did, I think it was like $70 million or $80 million on chain yesterday, and on-chain volume. I'm sure on the exchanges is much higher, but for anybody who's around and still wanting to gamble, seems like there's always one, and this time it is Fartcoin. So, you know, we'll see. Do you think Fartcoin will survive and lead kind of the meme coin sector into this next run up whenever that does happen, whether it's kind of 5 days away or 5 months away or 5 years away?
Wait, what about GOAT? I thought GOAT was going to be the coin, man. I thought GOAT was the, I mean, who knows, man? This is what you know, is that you don't know anything, right? The one you thought was going to be the great one, you know, vanishes and withers away. I saw, what was the one from the Grok, you know, they tricked Grok into releasing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's basically gone down under 10 million. It's going to be dust soon too, and it's just really, really difficult, right, to find out or to figure out which one's going to hold.
I don't know. Fartcoin though is completely, I would put it in a different class from these. This coin is literally all over the timeline. It's the only one that I think's up. I think it's 2x or 3x from the bottom, where everything else is just horrendously down. And it's not even in the top 100 yet, I don't believe. I believe
it was like totally destroyed though. I mean, it went down like 95% literally. So like everything else. But to Adam's point, I mean, we just seen this a million times. It does feel like Fartcoin is always leading off the bottom. Seems like it's like similar to last cycle's cum rocket. It just gets those headlines rolling, traditional markets just hate to see those headlines of the top performing crypto assets.
I mean, anytime you mention cum rocket, I'm just
Yeah.
like instantly like, wow.
That went crazy last cycle, right? It just went like to astronomical.
Yeah.
And people love these kind of headline grabbing kind of coins. And everyone knows that like the traditional markets absolutely hate to see what kind of nonsense we're up over here. So just like, it's just all an attention game. It feels like that's the coin that makes the people the angriest. So of course it pumps the hardest.
It's got a nice little chart looking. It's got a nice cup and handle. Looks like maybe it goes 2 billion and sells off, I guess, depending on what the bounce looks like here from the stock market. The larger kind of broader macro perspective here, it's been interesting. I've been kind of diving into the tariff stuff. I find geopolitics strategy, political strategy kind of interesting. This is the first time I'm actually living through like a big trade war as well. So trying to take in kind of all the information here. Chris, what do you think's the broader point of these tariffs? I've read about 6 different theories of it. I do think it is coming a little bit more clear over the last maybe 12 or 24 hours. But for your take, where do you think we're at with it? And what do you think's the main objective?
I think he said it yesterday. It's just like about getting these countries to the table and negotiating with them. And every negotiation is going to be a little bit different. But I think he's kind of, you have to take the ball into your own court and you have to play to your strengths. And so he got tired of waiting for other countries to kind of make their move. He thinks that the U.S. has been taken advantage of on the global scale, one way or another, country by country. And this is a way to get everyone to the table all at once and just kind of get negotiations started. So I think I think he campaigned on it. I think he's coming through on it. And I mean, anyone that is looking for like just any type of straight line, to Valhalla type of deal, it never works like that, right? You always have to experience some kind of market volatility. I think markets are only down like 15% from all-time highs, like traditional markets. I mean, this is like a lot of chaos for a 15% drop from all-time highs, right? So I just think that, like we said last week, it's always a flurry of media with Trump. The media doesn't allow for kind of upside kind of protection. It's always like max pain, max downside because of like the negative headlines against him. So if you think that there's any sort of chance that he's going to pull any of this off, or even that it might end up being a nothing burger, then this is probably a major buying opportunity, which is where I saw it on.
I thought it was kind of funny yesterday that Bill Ackman was on the timeline, hysterical crying, starting to point fingers at the Trump administration. And for those that don't know, kind of the TradFi lore, anytime Bill Ackman comes on CNBC or starts crying about the stock market, he generally has been the bottom tick like 4 times in a row, I think. And I actually dove in a little bit of research how he actually manipulated the market in 2020, but go ahead, what were you say?
Yeah. Just that, he's kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing a lot of the times. When he's crying wolf, he's selling, or maybe he's buying. So it's not always what it looks like with him. He got caught last time pretty heavy.
It seems like now, so kind of like some of the theories that I was reading on, what's the point of the trade war? One of them is that he and Scott Bessent are trying to tank the 10-year bonds and to drop the rates lower. They did get to like 3.8%. I think it was reading is like 3.7% is like where they needed to be to start to be able to refinance the debt of the United States government. And it did decrease, and then now it's back up to like 4.2. And so there's theories that it was China who is selling U.S. treasuries. And from my understanding, what it seems like is it's just Trump and the administration are trying to bring all the other countries to the table first to then put pressure on China. And that's like the largest one because China or the United States is a deficit country where comparative to imports and exports, China exports 80% of their, or 80% of their exports are, I guess, or the deficit is to the United States comparative to 20. So Scott Bessent, I think he's been like a pretty good, strong indicator. That guy's also a G, dude. He was literally the guy who broke broke the Bank of England with Stan Druckenmiller and George Soros. That's kind of like a legendary story on Wall Street.
Yep.
He was basically saying that this is like a very bold move for China to have retaliatory tariffs because the United States is a deficit country. And he basically said that China has a pair of twos at the end of the day. He's basically saying like they don't have nothing. Like they've basically showed their hand so far.
I mean, and the political landscape and just kind of manufacturing and all these economies, they're ever changing. They're not static. And so, we outsourced a lot of our manufacturing to China for kind of cheaper products, but they're not the only ones that can make cheaper products anymore. You can go over to Vietnam, you can go over to Cambodia, you can go over to the Philippines. All these different markets are open, but we've never renegotiated our trade deals with any of these countries. And so this is another way to say the manufacturing landscape has changed. No one has a monopoly on it any longer. And we're open to kind of accepting new trading partners. And that can kind of have pretty significant implications on like just the global markets, which I think just kind of getting away from any cornered market is generally healthy. So diversify for your trading partners, I think, is healthy.
It's
I just think the idea, that we were going to get a fiscally responsible or a more fiscally responsible government without any pain is just like such an illusion. And I know the American public seems to not want to accept any pain, but for us not to think that there might be some pain involved in printing less dollars just seems, I mean, it's like a myth, a fairy tale. And I mean, obviously it's hyped by our media, to try and damage, the current administration. Oh, this is so terrible. Oh, stock market's falling. Who gives a fuck, frankly? It's like, if we want to get, have a government in 10 years, like you have to get fiscally responsible. And this is a move in that direction. And, most of us with any sense, this is what we voted for. Like we voted for this. So we'll see how it plays out.
The stock market has essentially become a meme coin. I don't know if you saw yesterday, there was like fake news that's originated on Twitter about a 90-day tariff pause. And the stock market went up $7 trillion in an hour. And then Trump came out and said that was fake news. And then it went back down like $7 trillion.
I mean, it's literally incredible. It's like, is that market manipulation? Who put out that tweet and why aren't they in jail? I don't know, man. It's like, it literally fake news. Absolute. I mean, it's incredible how much, the market can be moved, but this is the world we're in. The illusion of like real news or real stuff happening, man, it's just versions of fake. How fake down the rabbit hole are we going to go? Yeah, that was crazy yesterday. I mean, it's funny because I, talking with my brother who's like a traditional, Wall Street guy. And his current feeling is like, yeah, there's going to be definitely a bounce because everybody's thinking, oh, I'm gonna grab the bottom, generational buy opportunity. But his gut told him, just looking back all through, he's been in the market since 2000, before 2000, as a professional. He's like, be careful because it could go, if you're thinking of trying to grab the bottom, it could definitely go lower. There could be kind of a false bottom here. So just pay attention to the possibility that we go much lower.
As of this morning and last night, there's been like 70 or so countries, is what they're claiming, have come to the negotiation table. They just said the Italian prime minister is traveling to the US to negotiate. China is still holding out. South Korea has said that they will not fight back. Japan as well. So this is where it seems like the objective is to just get China to come down and renegotiate. That's a huge win for the United States. I was actually reading a little bit deeper on this, and apparently the kind of like financial games that's being had, and this is, I kind of find it interesting. I don't know whether this is right or not, but China is in like a pretty massive recession right now, or some even said like a depression. And that China is trying to decrease the value of the yuan. And in preparation of the decrease in exports. I guess that's supposed to like balance it out somehow. And I think the truth of what's happening is probably watching Scott Bessent come out. He seems to have a pretty firm understanding of what's going on. He's actually really interesting. I've listened to like 4 or 5 of his interviews now. And it sounds like yesterday he actually traveled to Mar-a-Lago to talk to Trump to basically tell him that he needs to be a little bit more clear and straightforward on what the objective is of these tariffs and kind of start talking about what the end goal is. So it seems like from what I was reading before, whether it's true, Howard Lutnick, who's like the Secretary of Commerce, I guess, was more in his ear. And now it seems like Scott Bessent's kind of taken over. And that would be the guy that I want. I mean, he's the Treasury Secretary, but that would be the guy that I want in Trump's ear. He's obviously broken the Bank of England before. He knows how these kind of like financial games go. And he's definitely 1-0 or many 0 so far in his career.
Yes, sir. I mean, Scott Bessent's a G. He's has had a storied career. He's one of the best traders in the world, one of the best kind of best investors at understanding just the whole global marketplace rather than just kind of like one siloed country. So incredible to see. And at the worst case, right, just getting all of these world leaders to the table just to negotiate, just based on principles, one at a time, is something that's pretty kind of like awe-dropping to see. I mean, we haven't really had long-standing negotiations in a long time. So I think that there's mutual benefits that can kind of be had all throughout all these different countries. So I think it's a great thing. I think we're in a good spot, you know. And plus, aren't Bitcoiners of the opinion that whatever's worse for the markets is better for Bitcoin? Like, you know, the next catastrophe is only some amount of time away, and that always ends up in global stimulus. So shouldn't this, if this does go sideways, wouldn't that just bring us like one step closer to the Bitcoiner vision? It seems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jake.
Just the final question or point on this is, you know, how long does it last? Obviously, we're seeing the VIX is at, it was at one point was higher than the COVID VIX was. It seems like it's a little bit kind of overblown. The market increased $7 trillion off of fake news and then went back down. This morning, it's up $2.5 trillion in a few hours. So it seems like the market just wants clarity. But the larger question, at least just in relative nature to us, is how are the crypto markets affected, and at what point do my altcoins start coming back? Because it becomes more of a risk-on scenario than you know, a stabled up and kind of watch and see what happens situation.
Well, for me, it's just there has to be just general bullishness to what's happening in America, right? And right now, it feels like, oh, we got to go through this to kind of get to the other side. But I think, you know, for Americans in general, and I know for myself, seeing kind of the reduction in regulations, freeing up markets, all that sort of stuff just creates this like bullishness. And I think, you know, I do believe that the no tax on, you know, someone earning maybe $100,000 or less. I know they're putting out 150, but maybe it ends up being 100 or maybe even 75, something like that, which isn't, I mean, most people at that level don't really pay much in federal taxes anyway, but still just this kind of like, oh my God, I'm going to be unburdened. I think that's just that's like their final card to play, which will just like release the kind of American bullishness. And I think once that happens, then we get a rip in the crypto market. It just, we need people to feel rich to be buying crypto again. That's the general feeling. And whether that's through, you know, tax relief or some sort of stimmy, that's what I feel like we need. We need that feeling that people are rich again.
Yeah, I agree. Also, you know, the retail is only like a marginal buyer. Retail is a bigger percentage of a buyer in a market these days, but most of it's institutions, right? So a devaluation in the yuan would be like massively bullish. You would see huge capital outflows to Bitcoin. Devaluation in the US, same thing. So you have like these institutional players that kind of move the markets rather than like first, rather than kind of retail coming in and kind of scooping the dip first, I think, in these scenarios. And then we do have the fact that kind of crypto is the most liquid, so it always moves first, whether it's first to take a dive or first to kind of rebound, because it is the most liquid. So I think that that's playing a big role. And then a lot of people like to kind of put a lot of weight on these VIX numbers, which is a good stat, but people have way more access to the markets than they've ever had. So when you give more people access, you're going to have more opportunities for volatility. So more people have, Robinhood downloaded. Now more people can sell instantly that haven't been able to sell. So I feel like the numbers are kind of inflated, just by more people having access to global markets 24 hours a day. And I don't think that wasn't such a thing maybe 5 or 10 years ago within the calculation.
I was reading that anytime the yuan is devalued, there is a huge outflow from Asia and China into Bitcoin. Actually, it's kind of an interesting stat. I didn't realize like how much China manipulates its own currency, but apparently that's like a very big thing. That's actually part of the whole point of the tariffs, I guess.
Yeah, that's what's great about the dollar is being transparent is kind of like the dollar's biggest downfall. You can see how much is printed. You can see how much of how much it can be inflated or propped up, but it's actually all completely transparent. Inside the Chinese yuan, you don't have any idea how much supply there actually is. You don't really have too much of an idea of what's really going on under the hood. You only have best estimates. So when people talk about like the death of the dollar, it's like so just absolutely like hyperbolic, because there's no other dollar. There's nothing like the dollar in any of these countries anywhere in the entire world. It's the most trustworthy currency in the world, and that's something that's kind of invaluable or priceless.
And that's why you get the rush for the stablecoin bill, so you can start to export that faster. During the COVID crisis, I actually heard a stat that it was when the U.S. prints money, 70% of that inflation is actually exported to the rest of the world, because that's where the rest of the dollars are. So a lot of times, if the US is printing, as long as other countries are printing more on a relative basis, then it's actually strengthens the dollar. I guess that's what makes me an armchair expert, is you learn more throughout all these crises of all of these kind of nuanced points of the traditional finance system. But also probably 20 years from now, we'll be in the same position where we're commenting on all the nuances of crypto Ponzi's and why this stablecoin's bullish and why this one is not, in a situation like that. So it's going to be interesting. In other news, moving on from our macro perspective, there was another M&A that happened today. I don't know if anyone saw this, but Ripple spent $1.25 billion, which is one of the largest deals ever in the crypto space, on I believe it was a prime broker. So Ripple acquires prime broker Hidden Road for $1.25 billion, one of the largest deals in the space. That's in their own words from Ripple.com. They say Ripple will inject billions of dollars of capital, provide immediate scale and satisfy the demand of Hidden Road's prime brokerage, clearing and financing platform. RLUSD becomes the first stablecoin to enable cross margining between digital assets and traditional markets, reinforcing its position as a premium enterprise grade US-backed stablecoin. Last point here, Hidden Road to migrate post-trade activity across the XRLP ledger, demonstrating its potential as the go-to blockchain for financial or institutional decentralized finance. So what I read out of this is that stablecoin, or that instead of saying XRPs for banks, they're saying the RLUSD, which is the Ripple stablecoin, is for banks, and that they're kind of abandoning XRP, the asset, as the bank to bank kind of digital asset here, and that they're moving more into the US backed stablecoin RLUSD. Chris, what's your take on this acquisition? I believe probably the largest so far, at least from a public number standpoint in terms of M&A and crypto.
I think that they were all around the $1 billion. There was the Kraken deal. I think that was around $1 billion. I think Coinbase, I don't know if it went through, but they were kind of sourcing Deribit, which was like $4 billion. And then there was the Stripe payment coin deal, which I think was over $1 billion too. So I think this is interesting. It's not really interesting to me. I mean, Ripple, this is like, it's what they should have done 5 years ago or 10 years ago, is pivoted to the stablecoin model, because they were the stablecoin model before stablecoins existed, and they just never happened to pivot. It looks like they're finally making the pivot, which makes sense. I don't know. I mean, they're still relevant, I guess, but it's been a long road to get them here. So I guess I'm happy that they're embracing the stablecoin industry because they were the first ones to kind of try and go down that route. But I think the more interesting story is just that these deals are getting done, and these are the deals that you're hearing about, which means that they were underwritten, months ago. So there's like clearly a scramble. We went from 0 acquisitions and mergers over the last 6 months, or even over the last couple of years probably. Now you have 4 pretty big ones, 4 of the biggest ones in industry history, all within a single month. So there's a clear structural change, whether it's better regulation, people preparing for public markets, or any other assortment of kind of strategies here. But there's a clear push to get acquisitions and mergers on the table and get them signed. So I would expect more follow through for this in the coming months, which is super bullish.
Yeah, this is like you get the this is like crypto buying its way into, traditional finance. Although some people would say, Ripple's not even crypto, but they're using their money to buy basically into traditional finance. Seems really smart for them, really smart. I mean, the couple other acquisitions I've seen are actually the other way, where it's traditional finance buying basically like crypto investment firms. Like, I don't know if you guys know Bruce Fenton, who runs Satoshi Roundtable. He sold his firm to, a TradFi group, basically because he's done the legwork to make his business basically legal. And so they're buying all the, basically you're buying all the regulatory stuff that you have to kind of jump through to make these things work. And certainly the stablecoin moves, this is where it's all happening. Do we know when the Circle IPO is? Do we know when that's happening?
I do not believe there's a date on it.
I think
Okay.
I saw yesterday or 2 days ago that they actually pushed it back. So they're maybe looking for some better market.
Oh, really?
conditions. Yeah. But
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how trustworthy is that source? I'm not sure. But I did see it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what what I'm seeing here is you have crypto exchanges. Now you have kind of top coin or centralized companies like Ripple coming in and acquiring traditional businesses, mostly around, prime mortgages, stablecoin infrastructure, and kind of like more back end dealings. What do you think like the next kind of target area is for these? It seems like now with the banks getting the clear go on being able to operate within the crypto space, this is more of a reactionary, or you could say more of a proactive stance on these crypto companies of saying, hey, we need to acquire this because we need to be able to compete with the banks. So, what is next? And also, I guess, Chris Moore, I'll say this, I'll pass that one to Adam, but Chris, do you think that traditional crypto companies can compete with the banks in this kind of like blended ecosystem, that between traditional finance and crypto?
That's kind of the age-old question, right? Is like new and innovative the way to go, or is like old and slow? And I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like the US story versus the China story, right? Everyone says China works in hundreds of years, the US works in maybe years or tens of years. But I actually like the upstart and the startup modes better. To be honest, you're much more flexible. You're much like, it's hard to plan for 100 years, even as a country, because there's so much volatility in between. There's so much that can change, right? I think it's kind of the same with these traditional banks and kind of the crypto industry. There's so much nuance that you have to be boots on the ground, understanding what's in the industry to have a good product. Otherwise, you're not going to have any product at all. So do I see like Bank of New York, Yellen, or Mellon just kind of, and these like that's like one of the oldest banks in the entire world, or at least in the US. Like, are they going to hold crypto? For sure. Like, are you going to be able to buy Bitcoin from your checking account and savings account? Yes, but like, as far as like more advanced or more mature crypto products, I think a lot of these are kind of going to have to be bottoms up, and I think that they'll be purchased by the big banks rather than the big banks building themselves.
You think these banks get into the decentralized exchange business, like the Uniswaps and the Jupiters? We have seen Jupiter come in and acquire a ton of crypto companies over the last few months.
They just have too much regulation. They have no edge. There's no way that they would be able to KYC or have AML, anti-money laundering kind of capability, like tracking capabilities. So the DEX game is like all crypto natives, 100%. They don't have an edge at all.
I read an interesting theory about Robinhood actually trying to become a bank where they're trying to take a back end approach to it. I don't know if you saw that Robinhood now has a service where they deliver cash. Did you see this like a
No.
week ago? They'll bring cash. You deposit money into Robinhood and they will literally bring you cash, like physical cash to your door. And this is kind of like a roundabout way of
who needs that service? What's that for, man? That seems crazy. What is that actually?
and
like,
they have
what's the use case of that?
They have incentives on top of it as well. So I was reading that this is kind of like a back end way of getting deposits into Robinhood, like digital deposits. That then they're going to try to create some sort of like crypto decentralized digital asset type neobank of some nature. This happened like maybe 2 weeks. It was maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
It seems incredibly dangerous. It seems like we're gonna have like Uber drivers running around with bags of cash. This time, I can't say that sounds like safe by any means. But hey, we'll see it. Al Capone is running this side venture, or who's running this?
I mean, I think you're touching on though, Jake. I mean, do we think like crypto companies are going to win against traditional finance? Like playing the game, it seems like traditional finance still has the edge, only because they're in the pockets of, the government officials and stuff. But as we've seen, there have been huge moves by crypto companies to also get in the pockets of the government officials too. So I think for the smart players, the big players, it's all about kind of mergers and acquisitions and getting themselves in position. Like with Jupiter, right? It's very possible at some point Jupiter, either gets acquired or merges with a large kind of TradFi institution. Like that's I think the way smart companies are playing it. Just setting themselves up for, whatever's on the table from a regulatory perspective.
One more thing too, though, is man, this industry is just like fucked ourselves so much with the incentive structure. And so many people came in to build products to get rich in crypto. And some of these traditional players will be building products to actually build good products. So I think that can't kind of be overstated how important that is. A lot of these, 150-year-old banks aren't really in it to make the 100x on their token sale. They're actually in it to just kind of make a sound product for their customers. So I definitely welcome that mindset.
Interesting. So moving into some of the on-chain information, the limited stuff that's happened over the last few weeks or so. Kaido came out and announced their NFTFi vision. The most staggering thing that I noticed, they said as of Q1, their annualized revenue is $33 million. So it means in quarter one, the revenue was, what is that, like $8 million or so in Q1? That is insane for a crypto product that most things are not. And it's not even like a full on-chain product.
Are they counting some sort of token sales as like revenue? What's going on here?
It says
I don't think so. I heard they did a huge round. Like I want to say they raised like more than $10 million or something for their rounds. On like I don't know, 50 or more $1 million market cap or some larger amount. It was let me look at it real quick.
Who's paying for Kaido though? Who's paying them revenue? How are they making revenue?
Supposedly they're like social media people or people who are looking to do ads.
Like their data,
yeah, they're using them. It's expensive. I want to say it's like $800 a month. And with that though, you get to actually target, who on Twitter is actually like whatever. I mean, we know what Kaido is, but yeah, so very specific, granular. Who are the real influencer type of thing? But that is kind of surprising that it's legit. That much like per month in revenue.
So as of Q1, Kaido's annualizing 33 million in revenue, growing 100x over the last 12 months, driven by rapid adoption and multiple new product launches. It says that Kaido's the leading player in both AI and NFTFi, pioneering new metas, mindshare and yaps, and continuing to push the frontier of innovation. The easiest way to understand Kaido is through 3 different avenues. Info as a service, which is the Kaido API and Kaido Pro. Info as a platform, Yaps and Connect, which that's the kind of retail facing stuff. And then info as an asset, which is Kaido Markets, which I believe this is kind of what they're beginning to roll out now. They started with the API and Kaido Pro, where there's a bunch of people apparently who sign up for this or pay for it. I think it was like 10,000 for the year, if I remember correctly, for somebody on my timeline had said that. In the last 30 days alone, Kaido has spent 1.2 million on buyback to accumulate Kaido reserves. So they started buying back the token to ensure that they are aligned. Some other information, we talked about this, I think, last week, where you now have some applications building on top of Kaido. Obviously, we see the TGE or pre-TGE companies like Wayfinder. I think Story did this, where they're giving a certain percentage of their TGE to yappers because it's easy to kind of identify who is engaging within your community, also who has kind of mind share, which is just the intention version of market share within the ecosystem. And now it seems like they're starting to dive a little bit into how to monetize this, also kind of how to sell it. And a company like Noise, where you can actually go long or short on the quote unquote attention or mind share of a project, is kind of the second layer. So maybe they're moving into something a little bit that resembles kind of like a chain link of the attention markets, where chain link is kind of the or their chain links like the oracle for financial markets. So they would be kind of like the social oracle for attention markets. I do have Dogfather on stage, who's a big Kaido bull. What's your take on the post that the founder had released earlier this morning?
Yo, GM. Honestly, I haven't really looked into that, but probably, I mean, I know their case, so I just wanted to chime in on these buybacks, which is super interesting because, I mean, it's pretty close after TGE, right? And normally, Web3 projects don't do that, so it's to show some strength, to show muscle. And you have to put that into perspective, right? So they just dropped 10% of their tokens. Of those 10%, only 33% or 32%, so 1/3 of those were just claimed. So for whatever reason, 2/3 of the tokens were not even claimed. So it's just like 3.2% circulating, in total. 1/3 of that is being staked. And so we talk about circulating coins that is around 20 million, and of those 1 million is being bought back by Kaito. So this is really, like, we talk about huge percentages. So that's massive. So I mean, I'm not aware of any project doing that early after TGE. Yeah. So that being said, I'm bullish on Kaito because they managed, for everyone who is doing a TGE, without Kaito, it will be very hard to grab the mind share. And projects are being forced to pay, some goodies to creators. Otherwise, people just don't talk about these projects. I mean, for free, mind share for free, man, that's over. I mean, maybe for chat projects like Agent Hustle, people talk about that because they have some, tokens from the pump fund, early bounding curve. But for projects not paying for creators, well, they just go somewhere else. They just go to Somnia. They just go to whatever kind of like project, because they pay the top 20, top 50, top 100 creators who talk about these projects in a meaningful way, really decent money in terms of stables, but also like project tokens. So it's pretty tough if you don't sit on a large enough money to actually pay out.
Yeah. So over here it says Kaido API is one of the most widely used APIs for AI agents and LLM applications, and that Kaido Pro is trusted by over 700 teams across protocol funds, infrastructure, and research desks. They compared themselves to the Bloomberg API or Bloomberg terminal. Obviously, they have NFTFi, Kaido Earn, the Yap leaderboard, and a Capital Launchpad. And next, this is up and coming. a next-gen AI matchmaking system that optimizes for interest and value-aligned community capital, leveraging rich off-chain and on-chain signals. They're comparing themselves to Facebook and TikTok, says their Web2 comparison. And then info as an agent, Kaido Markets transforms information, mindshare, narratives, and sentiment and more into a tradable asset class. So they actually mention their revenue sharing partnership with Noise. So, they are moving quite along, leading the kind of AI sector, I guess, for now, in terms of a company that is related to AI, or they use AI under the hood, but they don't effectively market themselves as just a pure AI company. They kind of started out as this info company and then moved on over to it. So,
Dogfather, I'd love, because I know you're tracking this kind of more closer than us, but I'd love your feelings on. So if this is the way this moves forward, like as a space, right? And we have this thing where, okay, it's a project coming out, and if you tweet and talk about it, they're going to reward you for this kind of mind share. Well, traditionally, this would have been called like, because you're not talking about it like you're directly getting paid, you're kind of getting paid like second-handed payment kind of thing. Like, what's your feeling on that? Like, I'm actually okay with it because it just turns the whole timeline into, we could just be clear, everybody's shilling their bags, right? Okay, let's just move on and say everybody's shilling their bags. And as long as you realize that if I talk about a hustle, I probably have something involved in hustle. Or if I talk about whatever Kaido, I'm probably interested in getting yaps. But what's your feeling on this? Like, just as an industry, we're just moving past this idea of like, what I'm saying, like shilling, or where we have to kind of be upfront about us talking about something because we're getting rewarded. I mean, is this that putting that in the rear view mirror, like where we're just all recognizing now everything we talk about is almost like a paid or promotion type of thing? Like, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I completely get your point. I mean, I would say in the old times, if you were like big enough, considered an influencer, or nowadays KOL, then you had direct deals with these projects. So you were shilling that and received some compensation. But this was only applicable to larger accounts, right? And nowadays, even if you're like a smaller account and focus on a particular project, maybe if you have 1,000, 2,000 followers and a few of them are smart, you can already receive quite a decent payment. So I would say this is democratizing these payments from the super large KOLs to also mid and smaller accounts. So they can also play this game. And this is just opening up this, you can make a living, and if you're like in a cheaper country, or you can at least have a nice side hustle for way more creators. Is that good? Is that bad? Do we like the timeline now more or not? This is a different question, but I mean, it's certain. It's super obvious to see that many creators participate in this game and want to be on these leaderboards to receive some payments. So let's see whether we like the timeline now more or less. There are certainly some ways to farm that are not that great. But there's certainly also creators who do really great jobs in covering these ecosystems in some depth.
Yeah, it is. The AI space is doing well, capturing a lot of attention, and there is some AI projects that are leveraging Kaido to gain a lot of market share and demand. Recently, AI Wayfinder, which was created by the Parallel team, as the Prime token, offered, I think it was 1% of their total TGE to those yappers on the timeline. It seems like Wayfinder is everywhere. They got up to 20% mind share, I believe, at one point. So that means 1 in 5 tweets about AI was about Wayfinder. They're sitting at 35,000 unique stakers. I believe you had to stake Prime token to get Prompt, which the token name is Prompt. Different types of ranges. There's people speculating on somewhere between 1 billion to 10 billion FTV at the time of the airdrop. 40% of the allocation of prompt is going to prime stakers. And remember, Parallel is like a gigantic venture capital backed company. It's been around since the NFT boom a few years ago. What are our takes on Wayfinder? I haven't used it yet. In terms of I didn't get like free access to the kind of private beta entry, but there's a lot of positive posts on the timeline. I've seen some cool features where you can like deploy your own smart contract with them. They have a few different kind of AI agents. Chris, what do you think about Wayfinder and its expected TG? I believe some point this month, which was previously pushed back.
Yeah, I mean, they're crushing it. I think they're building in the right direction. They're building in the same direction as Agent Hustle. This DeFi AI sector seems to be catching all of the attention, which we kind of planned for all along. So I think more competition within this tiny niche of an industry is a win for everybody. I mean, some of this stuff just seems so obvious. It's not really a controversial statement to say that AI is going to change the way that every single industry is working. At this point, pretty much everyone kind of is aware of that. But no one really seems to see how it's changing crypto. And everyone in crypto seems to think that crypto is, the biggest opportunity of our generation. And then now you have the AI kind of play alongside it. And this is the biggest market within the AI crypto sector. And it seems that it's still not really catching the attention that it deserves. So I think Wayfinder's early. I think Agent Hustle's early. And just kind of more high quality builders within this tiny segment is a win for everybody.
Yep, I completely agree. Dogfather, what's your take on Wayfinder, and have you been yapping about it?
Yeah, very good point. I mean, I made sure that I did all these social tasks like, super simple, just follow them, repost something, that's super simple. If you also send, I think, $10 worth of something to an ETH wallet and a Solana wallet, then this is another thing to grab some of the airdrop. So it's super simple to do. And I mainly like to play around with these protocols and with these campaigns, just to learn how to create a successful campaign. I mean, obviously they were very successful with the grabbing mindshare. I mean, this was really a huge success so far. I'm not sure why they postponed the TGE. I mean, timing the market is one thing, but I think at the end they postponed just to create even more buzz around it, because after TGE, everyone knows that this is the hard time. Pre-TGE, everyone is talking about you. Post-TGE is then it's really complicated. So I think it's super interesting to see how they create it. And one particular smart move is that they're not focusing only on the large accounts, but they focus on the mid-sized yappers. So you need to have at least 100 yaps, which is feasible, but you need to be active, I would say. And they don't focus on these inner circle yappers, which are typically the larger ones, but rather on emerging yappers. Emerging yappers are those that have less than 1,000 smart followers. So Jake, I think probably you're not there anymore. I'm still an emerging yapper. I have more than 100 yaps. Of course, I love these filters because it's exactly me. So it's like smaller to mid-sized people who are active, and the sheer numbers of those, there are thousands of those, also play a role, right? So that's a nice idea, and I think this will be copied. Not to focus on a small, large ones, but on thousands or tens of thousands of mid-sized accounts, and this is how you capture mindshare. The larger ones may play different roles, and they may have different modules for those. But I think to target, let's say, if you think about the pyramid, not to have the huge bases and not just the top, but the huge account of middle, kind of like the middle building, so to say, of the pyramids. I think it's pretty smart. So they do everything right. I haven't played around with what they offer. Maybe it's almost as cool as what Agent Hustle is doing, and that would be really amazing. So let's see. We will find out. But I mean, the campaign they're running will be studied for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. Have you tried out the product, and what's your, if so, what's your thoughts on it comparative to some of the other ones?
No, I mean, this is not open yet, so I couldn't try it out.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think they do have there's a gaming aspect too, which I was not even aware that they were like a gaming company principally. But there's a whole gaming aspect to it as well. Honestly, it feels really confusing to me, but I've learned that tokenomics, people love really confusing tokenomics. I don't know why that is, what that is about humans, but seems to be like people love that sort of stuff. And they've certainly been able to generate some nice hype on the timeline. To kind of Dogfather's point about Cato and yapping and stuff. I wonder how much of this translates to real users. Still feels like, to Jake, your point, the way we talk offline, it's like, let's just make a great product, because at the end of the day, like, you can have all the hype in the world, but the moment that TGE comes, if you don't have something backing it up, bro, it's a race to zero, So in a lot of ways, I feel like what we're doing with Hustle and just building a great product is kind of the way to go.
Looking across the sector or the industry of DeFi AI, Heyanon has also put out a bunch of updates. They do it every Friday, which I think is pretty cool. And they integrated Uniswap v3. They integrated Drift, which is on Solana, and then their Apeswin, which is their other game, and Meteora. So they're moving quite fast. The founder of Heyanon, Danielle, has started doing live stream similar to us. His is more focused on kind of like degen type, I guess degen trading, where he'll have open Heyanon, he'll have open Heyanon, or he'll have open Heyanon, was it Photon or GMGN, and Telegram, and it kind of takes you through this like sophisticated DeFi trading, which kind of showcases, I think, like a little bit of the direction on where they're going. But it is still cool to see, nonetheless, that this sector is going to continue to emerge and evolve. And I think it only just adds a little bit more credibility that this is just going to completely revolutionize the UX experience of the way that people are trading. Chris, what do you think about the current status of DeFi AI, where it is, and I guess somewhat of how it's progressing over the last month or so?
It's cool to see that it just keeps on growing in mind share and products on the market, and just kind of in community. I think it's slowly people are kind of realizing how powerful it is to kind of interact and interface with AIs alongside the like crypto rails. I mean, we talk all the time about just how something as simple as automated LPs are like 100x improvement on the industry, because so many people within crypto haven't provided liquidity to a pool before, and in doing so, you kind of bolster the liquidity across the board. So not only is it benefiting the user, but it's benefiting the whole ecosystem as a whole. So I just think that the industry is in its infancy in terms of the DeFi AI sector, but we're extremely confident at this point that that's where all kind of roads to the industry are leading, and most of this stuff is going to be automated on chain for the everyday user. So it's cool to see the progress and the product that Agent Hustle is, and I think just it's more concrete evidence seeing some of these high quality other products open up in the same sector. Did we lose you? Did I lose you?
stake and create, you know, all that stuff sounds okay, but bro, without anything like actually out there,